In 2024, football academies play one of the most instrumental roles within a football club, and in today's video we're going to be taking a closer look at each championship club's youth academy and finding out who their most valuable former academy graduate is in 2024. How many gems has your youth academy produced over the years? Let me know down below, and is there anyone in particular who's coming up through your youth ranks right now who you're particularly excited about? If you're going to enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like. 400 likes would be massively appreciated. But without any further ado, let's jump in. Blackburn have produced some great players over the years, but their most valuable former academy player in 2024 is actually David Raya. According to Transfermarkt, he holds down a market value of 35 million in 2024, which is slightly more than Adam Walter. Raya spent 2 years in the Blackburn Youth Academy before he made his senior debut for the club in 2014. Obviously, he got his move to Brentford off the back of a few successful seasons with Rovers and has now established himself as one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League with Arsenal. For Bristol City, it's actually a two-way tie for their most valuable former academy graduate, as both Antoine Semenyo and Alex Scott are both valued at 20 million by Transfermarkt, and both players coincidentally just so happen to play for Bournemouth these days. Both players obviously fabulous from their time at Bristol City. Semenyo in particular has really established himself as a regular in that Bournemouth starting 11, and Scott, still at just 21 years old, got bags of potential for the future. Burnley's most valuable former academy graduate is Luke Cundle, who spent just 2 years with Burnley between 2012 and 2014 before he was then picked up by Wolves as a youngster. He's valued at 5 million, which is the most of any former Burnley academy player in 2024 right now. For Cardiff City, it's actually Rabbi Matondo who's their most valuable former academy player. Now, he only spent a short stint at the Cardiff Academy. He was first picked up by Cardiff before he then moved over to the Manchester City Academy in 2019. He's currently valued at 3 million, which is slightly more than Ruben Colwill, who's the latest sort of prodigy, I suppose, to be excited about coming up through the Cardiff ranks. Coventry City have a great record when it comes to developing youngsters. Their most valuable former academy player is James Maddison, who's valued at 70 million in 2024. One of the best creative players in the Premier League today, and it's clear that he'll always have a soft spot for Coventry because that's where he started. At Derby County, their most valuable former academy player is Liam Delap, who spent 10 years in the Derby Academy from 2009 to 2019 before he was then picked up by Manchester City. He was brilliant in the Championship while out on loan with Hull City last season, but this season in particular for Ipswich Town has really made a name for himself in the Premier League. He's looked like a real handful for defenders, such a powerful runner. He's valued at 15 million, which is more than the likes of Morgan Whittaker, Will Hughes and Jayden Bogle, who have also come up through the Derby Academy. Hull City's best export in recent years has been Jared Bowen, who's now valued at 50 million in 2024, one of the best right wingers in the Premier League right now. Now, in the case of Bowen, it is important to stress that he did start his career with Hereford United, but he did make the move over to Hull City as a youngster, briefly played for their academy before properly establishing himself as a first team star, and is now a fully fledged England international. Other players from the Hull Academy of years gone by, you've also got the likes of Jacob Greaves, Keane Lewis-Potter and Dan James, who are all valued at more than 10 million nowadays. Leeds United's most valuable former academy player is Archie Gray, who was sold in the summer to Tottenham Hotspurs for a fee of around 40 million. Now, according to Transfermarkt, his actual market value is around 25 million, which is more than the likes of Calvin Phillips, Somerville, Jack Clark, who have all spent time in the Leeds United Academy. But it's no surprise that Archie Gray tops this list. He was by far the most complete youngster in the Championship from last season, has only featured sparingly for Spurs during this Premier League season so far, but still such a naturally gifted and young footballer. He's clearly got a very bright future ahead, and I wouldn't be surprised if in these next few years he's a regular in the England setup. The best player that Luton have produced in recent years is James Justin, going off the market values of all of their former academy players. He's valued at 15 million in 2024. The dynamic fullback played a key role in Luton's promotion from League One to the Championship in 2019. He was sold to Leicester City on the back of that successful season, has had a few injury layovers over these last few years which have hampered his development, but been a regular in the starting 11 under Steve Cooper so far this season, and still just 26 years old. Theoretically, still has some of the best years of his career ahead of him yet. Middlesbrough have produced a number of gems over the years, but their most valuable former academy player these days is Marcus Tavernier, who's continuing to do the business in a Bournemouth shirt. I remember there was a little bit of scrutiny when he did make that move from the Riverside to Bournemouth. I think it was when Bournemouth had just been promoted to the Premier League when he did make that switch, but he's continued to put up really solid numbers for the Cherries in the top flight. Established himself as a key player under Iraola, and at only 25 years old as well, another player who still has some of the best years of his career ahead of him. Always capable of scoring a banger as well, isn't he? Millwall's most valuable former academy player is Eberechi Eze, and in many ways he's the one that really got away from Millwall. After progressing through the ranks of the Millwall academy, he wasn't offered a professional contract by the club. He was then picked up by QPR shortly after that, and I suppose the rest is history. In 2024, he's valued at £60 million, which is way more than any other former Millwall Academy graduate. For Norwich City, it's still Max Aarons who's their most valuable former Academy player, valued at £16 million in 2024. You've also got the likes of Jacob Murphy, Colton Morris, Johnny Rowe, who are all valued at above 10 million as well, who have also played for that academy. Max Aarons, who's obviously now at Bournemouth, always felt like a player who was capable of maybe going that one step further in his Norwich City career, but that never quite happened for the 24-year-old. Oxford United's most valuable academy graduate these days is Shandon Baptiste. He spent a couple of years in the Oxford Academy before he was promoted to the senior squad in 2017/18. Made 43 senior appearances for the club before he was then sold on to Brentford for a profit. These days plays for Luton Town and has a market value of 2.5 million. At Plymouth Argyle, you've got Michael Cooper, who was obviously sold on in the summer to Sheffield United. According to Transfermarkt, only got a market value of 2 million, but I think we'd all agree it's a lot higher than that. One of the best goalkeepers in the EFL. Plymouth fans have been raving about him for quite a while now, and for good reason. He's been absolutely brilliant with Sheffield United so far this season, who boast such a good defensive record. Wouldn't be surprised if he's in the England setup one day. No real surprises. Portsmouth's most valuable former academy graduate is Adam Webster. He joined the Portsmouth Academy as a 12-year-old, was eventually promoted to the senior team in 2011/12, and then went on to make 81 appearances for the club. Now playing for Brighton, he's got a market value of 15 million and has established himself as a solid defender in the Premier League. Preston North End's most valuable academy graduate is Josh Brownhill, and he only really qualifies for this list on a technicality. He did spend the vast majority of his youth career with Manchester United, but was released as a teenager and then picked up by the Preston North End Academy, where he was quickly fast-tracked into the senior squad. North End fans could tell that there was a really good promising player in there with Josh Brownhill, but he never quite got that breakthrough with us. That didn't quite happen until he made the move to Bristol City, where his career really took off after that point. He's since gone on to do really well with Burnley. He's valued at 13 million, which is more than any other former Preston Academy player. For Queen's Park Rangers, we are talking about Eberechi Eze once again. We spoke about him in the Millwall section of this video, but like we mentioned then, when Millwall let him go, Queen's Park Rangers were the beneficiaries. They took a punt on him as a youngster, and after briefly appearing for the academy side, he made his debut for the first team, had a really good loan spell with Wickham as well, and then the rest is history. Sheffield United's most valuable academy graduate these days is Aaron Ramsdale. He spent around 3 years in the Sheffield United academy, made just 2 senior appearances for the club before he was then bought by Bournemouth. Fast forward a few years, he was then repurchased by Sheffield United during their season in the Premier League before he was then sold on once again to Arsenal, and now finds himself at Southampton, currently with a market value of 22 million, which is more than the likes of Harry Maguire, Iliman Ndiaye, Kyle Walker and David Brooks, who have also come through the Sheffield United Academy. On the other end of Sheffield, for Sheffield Wednesday, their most valuable former academy graduate these days is George Hurst, the Ipswich Town forward, who now has a market value of 4 million. After coming through the ranks at Sheffield United, he signed his first professional contract with the club in March 2016, but only went on to make 2 senior appearances for the club before he then moved on. He obviously played a key role in Ipswich's promotion from the Championship last season and is now establishing himself as a star in the Premier League. Stoke City have produced plenty of gems over the years, but their most valuable former academy player is Nathan Collins, and I think while he was coming through the ranks at Stoke City, Stoke fans could very much tell that they had a future star on their hands. He looked to cut above the level during his breakthrough years in the Championship, eventually got his big move to Burnley in 2021/22, had a stint with Wolves, and then during the summer of 2023, Brentford swooped in for him for a club record fee. He's now got a market value of 25 million according to Transfermarkt. Still holding on to his spot as Sunderland's most valuable former academy player, it is Jordan Pickford, although he's closely followed by the likes of Anthony Patterson and Chris Rigg, who are vastly rising in market value. But as of recording, according to Transfermarkt, it still is Jordan Pickford who tops this list with a market value of 22 million. As a Preston North End fan, I've always got a soft spot for Jordan Pickford because of the loan spell that he had at Deepdale, but established himself as a really top goalkeeper with Everton in the Premier League and has firmly established himself as, I mean, let's face it, one of the best international goalkeepers in recent memory with how good he's been for England in major tournaments. Swansea City's most valuable former academy star is Dan James. Now, it's worth pointing out that Dan James did start his youth career with Hull City, but he was picked up by Swansea as a youngster in 2014 for a fee of around £72,000. He then spent the next few years developing in the Swansea academy before he made his breakthrough in the senior squad, and that initial investment of 72 grand turned out to be a cracking deal for Swansea as they went on to flip him for a huge profit while selling him to Manchester United. He's now back in the Championship with Leeds United. He's got a market value of 14 million in 2024. Watford's most valuable former academy player, now on a technicality, it's actually Harry Kane, who's by far the most valuable player on this entire list with a market value of 100 million. Now, Kane obviously isn't very well known for his spell at Watford, but aged 11, he did spend a few weeks to months in the Watford academy before he was then picked up by Tottenham, and obviously the rest is history. Just for the sake of those few weeks that he did spend in the Watford academy though, I'm qualifying him for this video. He's by far the most valuable player on this list. And then finally for West Brom, their most valuable former academy player is Morgan Rogers, who spent pretty much his entire youth career with the Baggies. He spent 9 years in total with the West Brom academy, only made 1 senior appearance for the club though before he then moved on to Manchester City in 2019. His career really got kick-started during his stint with Middlesbrough. Obviously he earned the move to Aston Villa on the back of that and has since established himself as a top star in the Premier League and is now a fully fledged England international too. He's got a market value of 22 million in 2024 according to Transfermarkt. Well guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do get all your thoughts in the comments down below on your current academy prospects. Other than that though guys, thank you very much for tuning in and I'll see you all in the next one.